On today's show, why Donald Trump is a cornered rat who has never been more dangerous. And if you're not getting to work for the Democrats right now, we are looking at a nightmare after the midterms that will make January 6th look like a peaceful transfer of power. But first, I want to talk about Corey Mills. And then at the end of the show, I'm going to show you something that I'm really not that proud of, but I want your opinion on it. I don't know if this is the direction my show should take. So at the very end, I'm going to show you something that I don't know. Okay. Corey Mills is serving his second term in the House of Representatives. He's from Florida's 7th Congressional District. The House Ethics Committee is currently looking into whether he used his position in Congress to steer contracts towards his defense firm, which Mills brags produces some of the tear gas used on Black Lives Matter protesters as well as pro-Palestinian protesters. He's a good guy. Congressman Mills has been spending most of his time these days fighting off domestic assault allegations from several women, one in Washington, D.C., another back home in Florida. That's right, he's a Republican. And he's married, or he's getting a divorce. A lot of this stuff was going on while he was married. You might remember earlier this year, D.C. police came to the good congressman's apartment after a woman called 911 claiming the congressman physically abused her. D.C. police then launched an internal investigation into why responding officers didn't take Congressman Mills in for questioning, since the woman's bruises suggested some sort of violent altercation, but that incident seems to have gone away. Meanwhile, in Florida, there is the matter of 25-year-old Lindsey Langston, the congressman's former girlfriend. She's also a former Miss United States. I think she might still be Miss United States, or she won in 2024. Maybe there's a Miss United States 2025. I think she's a former Miss United States. And she's also currently an official inside Florida's Republican Party. Ms. Langston is attempting to get a restraining order on Congressman Corey Mills. Did I mention he's a Republican? Attorneys for Congressman Mills are supposed to be back in court tomorrow, trying to convince a judge that the congressman is no threat to this woman. The congressman's former girlfriend claims he possesses videos of her in various stages of undress, which she insists he's now threatening to send to her new boyfriends who she says the congressman refuses to let her see, even though they've broken up. Last week, Congressman Mills, did I mention he's a Republican? He admitted he did possess intimate videos of his ex-girlfriend, but insisted they were never intended for, quote, anything salacious. Really? Then what was it for? Research? Congressman Mills suggested he kept those videos only to, quote unquote, inform potential partners of hers about their relationship and or somehow win her back. But the congressman said it was never to harm her reputation or extort her. The congressman, did I mention he's a Republican, denied that he threatened to send these videos to the Miss USA pageant in the hope that they would strip her of her title. That would be Congressman Corey Mills. We've been following his adventures. Kamala Harris's new book, 107 Days, is now a #1 bestseller. During an appearance on MSNBC, last year's presidential Democratic nominee was asked, do you support Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic socialist topping her party's ticket in the race for mayor of New York City, which is a little more than a month away? Harris's endorsement for Mamdani was tepid at best. This was on MSNBC. She said she supports whoever the Democratic nominee is, but then added, there's a deep bench inside the Democratic Party, and Americans should not allow Mamdani to define my party. Well, that's the wrong answer. A few days later, to her credit, she spoke with Mamdani, and then Kamala Harris became the highest profile Democrat to give Mamdani a fulsome, a full-throated endorsement. And I say good for Kamala Harris. This is why I voted for her. But that stutter step of, I guess I support him too. Yes, I support him. That stutter step clearly demonstrates why I think she would have been a great president, but precisely why she's always been a horrible candidate who I don't think has a chance if she's thinking of running for president again. Sometimes you only get one shot to stake out a position, and what you say first is what people remember, partly because it's more often than not what you really believe. I'm glad she endorsed Mamdani, but I have no illusions about Kamala Harris ever becoming AOC or Bernie Sanders. Kamala Harris is a politician. She was for Medicare for all until she wasn't. She was for busing until she wasn't. She was one of the first people in the Senate, not so much to talk about abolishing ICE, but reimagining its role in law enforcement, which is not the worst thing for a Democratic centrist like Kamala Harris to say, but then she backed away from even that, running as a hardliner last year on immigration. She was for a wealth tax, and then she was against it. So look, one of the reasons I still like Kamala Harris is because she reminds me of Biden, who I reluctantly began to love. And now I think he's one of the best presidents in my lifetime. Politicians painting on a national canvas have to be opportunistic weather vanes who must go where the big money and votes are, which means we as voters can push them. But you need to wave money and votes. You need to wag votes and money in front of their faces. I wish it were otherwise, but American politics is football. And until it's something different, until politics becomes a different game, we can't step onto the field and say, you know what, I prefer to play Wheel of Fortune. No, it's football. Politics is money and votes. So, I always felt, had Kamala Harris won last year, I always felt because she had a moral compass, she could have been pushed much further to the left than she was willing to let on. I don't think she thought she could get elected running like Biden was running, who was a little more to the left than she was. So we have to make politicians do things. There are great politicians, they're rarities, and there are good politicians. Good politicians is what we have to, is the best we can deal with, especially now. Good politicians change with political wins. I'm not saying leadership isn't important, because that's not leadership. Leadership isn't changing with the winds. Great politicians create the political wins. Lyndon Johnson was a great politician. He created his own wins. But most of the time, we're dealing with good politicians, like Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Jack Kennedy, and even Franklin Roosevelt. If we're lucky and they go where the money and votes are, a good politician will be pushed in the right direction. Biden was a good politician until his brain short-circuited. He saw there was money and power on the left. So, please indulge me some alternative history. Let's pretend Biden had been reelected and Mamdani is looking like he's about to become the next mayor of New York City, despite our current mayor, Eric Adams, dropping out to throw his insignificant weight behind another corrupt political hack, Andrew Cuomo. If Joe Biden saw Mamdani topping his party's ticket, this is what I think President Joe Biden would have said this year, or what I like to think he would have said. Now, keep in mind, Joe Biden has not endorsed Mamdani, and Mamdani didn't endorse Biden last year. During last year's Democratic primary in New York, before Biden dropped out, Mamdani urged New Yorkers to, quote, leave it blank, to protest Biden's blank check given to Netanyahu in Gaza. So Mamdani and Biden aren't friends. So this is alternative history, illustrative of how I think politicians should talk about Mamdani. This is my fantasy, okay? Had Joe been reelected and Mamdani was topping the ticket for mayor in New York City, I like to think Joe Biden would have come to New York and endorsed Mamdani, saying something along the lines of, I like this, kids. I like this kid. It's what Harris should have said immediately. President Joe Biden would say in my fantasy, or Kamala Harris would have said in my fantasy, look, Mamdani's leading, and he's the future of the party, at least in New York. He's the future of the party. It's not Cuomo. That's what you say if you're a corporate Democrat, which is what Harris and Biden are. This is what you say when you're asked about Mamdani. Write this down. If you're a corporate Democrat, a centrist, a moderate, a problem solver, well, you are the problem, but I have to live with you for the time being in my party. So this is what you say if you're Josh Gottheimer. You say about Mamdani, we don't agree on most things. I'm a capitalist. He's a socialist. But I know he's a good man. He's got a good heart. And that's what our party ultimately is, a coalition of people with good intentions who all want the same things for our children. We just disagree on how to achieve those things. See how easy it is, Kamala? You go on to say, I think our party is big enough to accommodate politicians like me and Mamdani. We may not agree on most things, but there's really not that much that separates us. See, that's how you thread the needle. You say, if you're Joe Biden, in my alternative history, who just got reelected and Donald Trump is going off to prison, or if you're President Kamala Harris, you say, Mamdani speaks to a group of people in my party who I know we have to listen to, otherwise we're not going to win elections. You say something along the lines, if you're Biden, I'm in my 80s. Whether I like it or not, Mamdani's the future, so I endorse him wholeheartedly. And as president, I will try to help him keep all his promises, because his promises are good. I just disagree with how he's going to keep them. I'm not sure he can keep those promises. I don't see how you take on Wall Street and the landlords, but I sure like to see him try. That's what you say. You go, look, folks, hey, man, I'm from Delaware, and I wouldn't presume to understand voters in New York City. I'm just grateful for their support. This is a big party in an even bigger country where one size never fits all. The great thing about our expansive nation is we have all these laboratories of democracies to test ideas so the rest of us can learn from your successes and your failures. So if Mamdani, who, by the way, is young enough to be my grandchild, if he's going to try to provide affordable housing, free and universal daycare, free transportation, city-owned grocery stores so food is affordable, if he's going to try to make New York City livable for everyone, not just the vulture capitalists, I say, let's see what you got, kid. So he has my vote. I'm not so sure he can do what he claims he's going to do, but I sure as hell hope he does. And as your president, I'll be helping him every step of the way. Look, folks, I know his politics might not work for Democrats out in the suburbs. It might not be what people in rural districts want. But if New Yorkers want to give this a try, well, what the hell? I don't live in New York. What do I care? Say something like that. Most importantly, amaze me. Americans live and love to be amazed. That is all a corporate Democratic hack like Joe Biden, Obama, Kamala Harris, Hillary. That's all they have to say when it comes to Mamdani without alienating their supporters. Again, this is alternative history. I don't know if Joe would have said that. I like to think he would have, and I wished Kamala had said that first. It's really all anyone in the Democratic Party with more money and power they deserve. It's all they should be saying about Mamdani. Because no Democrat is against free child care. Nobody's against affordable housing or free transportation, better schools, and free health care. Just the problem is too many Democrats just don't think it can be done. Or more importantly, too many Democrats have too much money and don't want to pay for this. We need people like Mamdani, not just to prove it can be done, but to show us how. And by the way, if you're a corporate Democrat, if you're a capitalist, and there's no such thing as capitalism, at least not in the United States, this is socialism for the rich. If you think you're a capitalist, all the things that Mamdani promises, well, that's good for business. When Americans are struggling, they don't buy things, and 2/3 of our economy is the crap Americans buy. When Americans are struggling, when they can't pay for daycare or health care or send their kids to a safe school, they're not productive. Think of this as another corporate subsidy. Our vice president, J.D. Vance, no doubt wants to run for president in 2028, but he's got a problem. Nobody likes him, which is why Trump picked him. Trump 2028 merch is already being sold on Donald Trump's website. Lindsey Graham is already saying Trump 28. I saw him on Fox News, Trump 28. Now, he's doing it like he's taunting Democrats, but it's not a joke. When he gets pushback, he says, I'm just messing with Democrats. But see, that's how fascists work. They test the mood of the country by floating crazy ideas as if they're jokes. And then they see how far they can go. Suddenly it's no longer a joke. Lindsey Graham is so far gone, so desperate to stay in Trump's good graces, so terrified. His secret, that secret that everybody already knows, he's so terrified people are going to find out his secret that everybody knows. He's so broken, he'll do whatever he's told. And you can't have authoritarians without spineless enablers like Lindsey Graham, who is straight, or should I say right. He's right out of one of Christopher Isherwood's novels about pre-war Berlin. And if you don't want to read Christopher Isherwood, rewatch Cabaret. That'll tell you who Lindsey Graham is and where we're heading if these half people stay in power. So as you know, we're in the middle of the shutdown during Monday's White House sit-down between Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Donald Trump. Someone, according to House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, he was on CNN, someone in the White House placed Trump 2028 baseball caps on the negotiating table. Jeffries said it was the weirdest thing he'd ever seen. Hakeem Jeffries said he turned angrily to Vice President J.D. Vance and said, "You got a problem with this? Don't you have a problem with Trump 28?" And according to Jeffries, Vance said, "No comment," unquote. I don't know why anyone thinks Trump will go gently into that dark night. This man is the personification of sour milk, so he's quite comfortable staying way past his expiration date. On January 6, 2021, Trump told us exactly who he is. Despite Republican attempts right now to rewrite American history, make no mistake about it. Donald Trump launched an insurrection to stay in power. The only thing that kept Trump from succeeding, I believe, was Mike Pence, the vice president, refusing to co-sign. I truly believe that. As much as I detest everything Mike Pence believes, stands for, and represents, he reminded all of us on January 6th, there is no Constitution when you're up against somebody like Trump. There are only norms and patriots with a shred of human decency. What saved our republic, for better or worse that day, is Mike Pence having a shred of human decency. It was a pretty powerful shred because he's a despicable human being who shouldn't be anywhere near the levers of power. But he is an American hero by the very definition of what a profile in courage means. If you read President Kennedy's book, Profile in Courage, written by Ted Sorensen, a true profile in courage is a flawed politician who pays a huge political price for finally doing the right thing for the good of his country. It's also pretty much the plot to every action movie coming out of Hollywood. So if I ever met Mike Pence, and I would like to, I would say, "Mr. Pence, Mr. Vice President, I will do everything in my power to keep you and your supporters from ever getting their way politically. I think you're a backwater hick. I think you're hateful, even though you don't know you're hateful. I don't think you're a disciple of Christ. I don't like you. I don't like your marriage. I don't like anything about you. But you are one of my heroes. I thank you." Because we're judged by our moments. And when your moment came, you decided to keep the job of vice president ceremonial. And that makes him a hero, a despicable hero. When you watch Trump speak lately, he's clearly insane. This is not exaggeration. I know a lot of my listeners can't watch him. It's too upsetting. He is clearly insane. And I don't play clips of him on this show because it's disturbing. Winning last year only exacerbated Trump's pathological delusions of grandeur. What makes him, I think, especially dangerous right now is his body is slowing down. His voice is raspy. You can see he's tired. And worst of all, bored. Not good. Not good when a borderline personality is bored. People like Trump only know one comfort zone, and that comfort zone is dropping through the air down to the cold, hard pavement like Don Draper in the opening animation sequence to Mad Men. That's his comfort zone. Except for right now, the past couple of months, there has never been a time in Donald Trump's adult life where he wasn't plummeting, failing and falling, racked with debt, forced to declare bankruptcy at least 6 times, divorcing, in bed with mortally dangerous mobsters and oligarchs, owing them money, unable to pay them back. It's thrilling. It's self-destructive, but it's thrilling. Watch The Gambler with James Caan. living that way is what makes Donald Trump feel alive, especially now that he's no longer controlled by his rapacious sexual appetite. I don't know if it was sexual. I think he had an appetite for power over women that was rapacious. For Trump, closing in on 80, a good day for him these days is when that diarrhea faucet he mistakenly refers to as a lower intestine isn't set to maximum flow. That's a good day for Donald Trump. Trump is a joyless Shrek. He doesn't just break the law and lie because it's convenient. He also breaks the law and lies because that delights him. Lying makes him happy. Breaking the law makes him happy. Lying makes him happy. It allows him to live in whatever fantasy he conjured that makes him feel better about himself. Telling a lie that some people believe serves for Trump as some sort of twisted reaffirmation that he actually is a smart person, or that COVID wasn't his fault, or that he won in 2020. See, it's not good enough for Trump to lie to himself. He needs others to believe the lie. Otherwise, he won't believe it. Trump needed to see those imbeciles storm the Capitol. He needed to honestly believe that they honestly believe the election was stolen in order for Trump to honestly believe the election was stolen. All of this, the lying, punishing enemies, real or imagined, humiliating women and men, breaking the law, that's what gets Trump's juices flowing. Juices that, because of his dotage, no longer flow the way they once did, unless you're talking about his diarrhea faucet. All this pathological behavior that we've become accustomed to made Trump feel alive when he was in the prime of his youth, maybe even 15 years ago. But now he's almost 80, and he hears the ticking of the clock. So he needs more risk. He needs more danger. Because women, money, and cheating and lying can't do it for him the way it used to. He's staring into the abyss. He's looking at old age. His body doesn't work the way it used to. He's bored. Not good. When someone with a narcissistic personality disorder is bored. He's bored with everyone and everything around him. He respects nobody in his orbit. How could he? You can't get into his orbit unless Trump feels nothing but contempt for you. So, the only way for him to get meaning or value from what he has is to risk losing all of it. That's the only way it can have any value, by risking it. Which is why last year Trump couldn't have been happier. He was staring at prison, bankruptcy, divorce, and worst of all, becoming irrelevant, having no power. 2024 was his comfort zone. It was either the gutter or the penthouse. No in between. That's how he has to live. And from a mental health standpoint, ours and his, Trump winning last November was the worst thing that could have happened. That victory became the sugar in his yeast-infected id, which is now bubbling over with fear, anger, rage, and desire. Desire for things he's too old to enjoy. For people like Trump sneaking up on 80, there can never be enough money. But more importantly, there can never be enough power. When you get to Trump's age with his mental condition, it's power, power, and more power for Trump. When the mind and body started to fail, all he wanted was power, power over as many people as possible. And with that, the risk of losing power is the only thing that makes life worth living. So, Trump will take enormous personal risks in the Oval Office right now. And one of those enormous personal risks will be, once again, refusing to leave. That's one of the few things left to make him feel alive. Give him a charge, that kick he's addicted to, like a gambler blowing through his entire life savings. Living, Trump thinks, but he thinks this is living. It's decay, but he thinks it's living. He thinks living is on the knife's edge, risking everything for more power. Another reason he's such a threat to what's left of our republic is, besides being clinically insane, Donald Trump is pretty wise. There's a lot of wisdom in there. And he knows what's in store for him should he somehow be forced to leave the Oval Office again. Life as an ex-president, in Trump's enfeebled mind, life as an ex-president means death. He wouldn't know what to do. He's not going to build houses for the poor. Once he leaves office, he knows he will shrivel up and die like a maggot in the sun. That's the only way he sees his post-presidency. Because the only thing that kept Trump out of prison, even with that Supreme Court immunity ruling last year, the only thing that kept Trump out of prison was winning in November. If he leaves in January of 2029, he's looking at the rest of his life inside a courtroom. Maybe not prison, but definitely a courtroom. I can see the next president, Democrat or Republican, pardoning Trump. But a presidential pardon doesn't mean anything in our civil courts, and it doesn't mean anything in the state criminal courts. If he somehow becomes a private citizen in 2029, at best, he's looking at Rudy Giuliani's life. That's if he's lucky. And Trump knows that. He needs to stay in power, to stay out of prison, to stay out of debt, and to stay alive. He looked into the abyss last year. He saw what life looks like outside the Oval Office. It's not pretty. So, out of self-preservation right now, Trump thinks his only crowning achievement will be a crown. He sees Xi of China, Putin of Russia, all rewriting the rules so they can stay in power for as long as they desire, way past their term limits. That's where his head is at right now. It's underneath the crown. He wants to be a strong man, and don't tell me the Constitution's 22nd Amendment prevents a third term. The Constitution says a lot of things. It says anyone who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution and then participated in an insurrection can no longer serve in our government. The Supreme Court said, that doesn't apply to Trump. So don't tell me about the Constitution. So here's a scenario that's not impossible to imagine. Trump is wildly unpopular, but his base has sharp elbows, deadly elbows. And if Republicans win next year's midterms, if they keep the House and the Senate, even if it's just one seat, they will claim that's an overwhelming mandate. They will insist the American people have said on Election Day, we love Trump. Or at least Republicans will be forced to say that. I mean, deep down, they want Trump to go away. Deep, deep down. I mean, J.D. Vance wants to be president, but he'll believe whatever Trump tells him to believe. 2027, we're supposed to have a new president. In 2027, new Congress. 2029, we get a new president. In 2027, we get a new Congress. And if Mike Johnson remains Speaker and John Thune is still the majority leader in the Senate, they will go through the motions of starting the lawsuits to challenge the 22nd Amendment that limits presidents to 2 terms. They will launch a movement to repeal the 22nd Amendment, kind of like the Stop the Steal campaign after the election in 2020. But this is legal. This is perfectly legal. And I think they're going to fail. You need 38 states to pass a constitutional amendment. To his credit, if you want to give him credit, Trump has done a pretty amazing job forcing red states into redistricting their maps for the midterms, conjuring up red congressional seats where there was none. So maybe he could push through a repeal of the 22nd Amendment in enough time for the 2028 election. Again, in order for a constitutional amendment to pass, he's going to need 38 states. I like to think the math just isn't there for a constitutional amendment. But there's no law preventing Donald Trump from becoming Speaker of the House. In fact, he doesn't even need to be an elected member of Congress in order to serve as Speaker of the House. You only need the majority party in the House to elect you Speaker. And Speaker of the House, arguably, is the most powerful job in Washington. In fact, the Speaker, in some ways, has way more power than a lot of us even know, because all the power a Speaker of the House has flows from the Constitution. Congress, the House, controls the purse strings, the budget, and determines when and if we go to war, constitutionally. He's just got to be able to bully his caucus. I don't think Trump would have a problem bullying the Republicans in the House. All the good ones are leaving. Bacon is going. There's none left. So, if J.D. Vance gets elected president and Trump gets elected Speaker, who do you think would be in charge? Who do you think? Donald Trump. And that would give him time to overturn the 22nd Amendment. All of this, because it's Donald Trump, is possible. The only fly in the ointment is Trump is going to be 80. This is why the midterms are so crucial. If the Democrats win back the House next year, then Trump's presidency, I believe, ends. It will be a repudiation of one big, beautiful bill and the American people saying enough. But if this redistricting works and Mike Johnson remains Speaker, he, you, me have a serious problem. Trump is going to be even more insane if Republicans win the midterms than he already is. He will not leave office. He's going to be older, more delusional, and more desperate. These are not good times. As Vladimir Putin so often reminds the people around him, Putin learned growing up in abject poverty that there is nothing more dangerous than a cornered rat. So, no matter which way the midterms play out, Trump is going to be a cornered rat. And the only reasonable option for a narcissistic personality disorder like Trump's, the only reasonable option is refusing to leave office. I know you don't want to think about this, but think about it now, because thinking about it now is much better than having to think about it a year from now. Get to work for the Democratic Party. I don't like Hakeem Jeffries. I don't like Chuck Schumer. But I'm a Democrat, and they're all we have. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Thank you so much for listening to this show. Please hit the like button. Please share this. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room. This is also an audio podcast, which is commercial free. So you can listen to me wherever you get your audio. All right. Do you like this? Let me know. Leave a comment. This is AI. I took an actual joke from my stand-up act, and you can do this now with AI. Am I going down a bad road? I think I am. Let me know what you think.
I hope you don't mind, but I just had a wet dream, and a solid one, too. Forgive the odor.
All right. I'm really sorry about that, but this is scary. I mean, that's AI. I didn't do anything other than just found an old joke of mine that, let me know what you think in the comments section. Thank you, everybody.